Ever since its release in Cataclysm, Transmog has been a fundamental part of the player experience. From farming your favorite sets in your favorite expansions, to finding new and creative ways to make pieces you've collected from over the years fit together cohesively. There are even events and competitions centered around Transmog, as well as a variety of ways to obtain different sets like questing, PvP, PvE, and even farming delves. I've spent hours farming Transmog, but recently I thought to myself, how hard would it be to unlock every single piece of Transmog that I'm missing? The game's only 20 years old, right? How hard could it be? So I've decided to start a new challenge for myself. I'm calling it Mog Quest, and the rules are simple. I'll be playing on a main character, my hunter, and she is the only one I'm allowed to farm the majority of the content on. For raids, I'm allowing myself to have a warband, but that still means no more than 4 runs a week per raid. If I'm using the auction house, I'm only allowed to use the money that I've farmed from my runs or anything that I've sold. And finally, I must complete the majority of an expansion's transmog before I can start the next expansion. This will be determined by a few additional factors, excluding raid pieces and VOEs. I'll be starting in vanilla and working my way through the expansions. Since this challenge is on my main account, I'll already have a fair few pieces of gear collected already, and with Legion Remix still happening, I'll be passively collecting those transmogs throughout the month as well. That being said, I do have a lot of transmogs that I'm missing, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. I really didn't think I was missing that many until I actually considered looking to do this challenge. I am missing a lot of transmog. So without wasting too much time, I got my hunter ready, put 5 abilities on her bars, since I haven't played her in a decade, and I got started. I wanted to be as efficient as possible, so I started in Kalimdor with plans to hop from dungeon to dungeon until that side of the map was mostly complete. Ragefire Chasm was fairly easy. I was only missing an item or 2 from each boss, so I was able to get away with 4 runs before I had collected every single piece of gear. Wailing Caverns was also super easy. It only took me 3 runs before I had gotten every single piece of gear, and at this point I was wondering how hard this challenge was actually going to be. I was wrong. It gets so much fucking harder. I had to Razorfang Crawl, and I get every single piece except for 1 piece in 2 runs. I spent another 3 runs looking for that last piece, but I'm still feeling really good. And this is where I run into my first problem. I go to Razorfin Downs, I clear everything, and then the second to last boss bugs. I think that might just be a fluke. So I run out of the dungeon, reset, run back in, clear everything, and the boss is still bugged. I later find out that there is a workaround to this boss in the dungeon. There is another NPC that I can fight that will drop the same loot, but at this time I did not know. So instead of wasting any more time on that boss, I decided to go to Zul'Farrak. It took me about 15 runs to complete this dungeon, found out that the goblin who opens the door actually can die. Where's the goblin? And spent a really long time farming a boss that I thought had a recipe, when it turns out she doesn't. The whole dungeon has the recipe. But for some reason, on the map, it says she specifically has the recipe. So I'd say Zul'Farrak is probably the turning point of when I started to realize that this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Not because of the grind. The grind is fine. It was instead the fact that we had run into our first lockout issue. I knew this was going to happen. It was just only a matter of when. I just didn't think it would happen so early in the runs. But I had things to do in the meantime. I started the Scholomance quest, which allows me to go into Classic Scholomance. I organized my bank. And, to my surprise, I had to use Unstuck. It turns out that some dungeons don't like it when you go in before they're ready to be run again. Needless to say, I waited a little bit longer and finally grabbed all the pieces that I needed from Zul'Farrak. And after Zul'Farrak, I decided to go to Dire Maul. Dire Maul's fun. I love Dire Maul. And this is where I run into my second problem. I needed a way to leave dungeons fast. Dire Maul is a very long dungeon, and I didn't want to spend all that time running back. So, someone recommended that I join a follower dungeon. You queue instantly, and then you leave. But the problem with that is that you are racking up instances very fast, and you can only do a certain amount of instances per hour. So very, very quickly, I locked myself out of Dire Maul, and any dungeon, for that matter. But that was okay, because I had something else that I could do in the meantime. Farming Dark Ruins for the Scholomance quest. So I flew over to Eastern Plaguelands, where I ran into 5 million roleplayers. I mean, seriously. Look at all these roleplayers. I haven't seen roleplayers outside of a main city since I don't know when. Needless to say, I tried very hard not to ruin their roleplay while I farmed my Dark Ruins. And as a bonus, these mobs also dropped Essence of Undeath. I didn't know. And after about 15 or 20 minutes, I got bored. So I thought, hey, let's do Stratholme. Stratholme's right there. That'd be fun. And while I initially wanted to finish all of Kalimdor before I started on the Eastern Kingdoms, I thought, it's a nice break. I deserve it. I'm just a girl. But yeah, overall Stratholme was a really nice change of pace. I started with Live, and I was able to clear the Scarlet Quarters in 4 runs. I got all of Skull's items. He's a rare with an exclusive wand, so that was nice. And then I got locked out again. Yeah, woo! So for the rest of the night, I ended up farming Dark Ruins. And the next morning, I did something very ambitious and very stupid. I was really excited to film this series. So I thought, hey, why not grab another OBS? I'll do a recording, and then it'll be easier to edit. You know, because then I wouldn't have my webcam, I wouldn't have my music overlay. It would be great. I thought I was super smart. But my dumbass forgot to resize the resolution. So I went through the entire day recording, not knowing that it was this footage. Like, come on, bro, what is that? So I'm gonna have to use what I have left on my stream and B-roll that I definitely didn't film a couple hours ago pretending like I was in the dungeons. But hindsight is 20/20, right? And I had no idea that this was happening, so I was feeling great. And for the start of my day, all I had to do was 1 strat run, and I was done. Live, that is, I mean. Because I'd go on to do at least 10 strat undeads. It wasn't all bad, though. After the 6th run, I found Stone Spine and got his unique boots, which is the only item I needed from him. On the 8th run, I finally got the last item I needed off of Baron, and then I got locked out again. So, yeah. But this time was so much worse. Because the same thing that happened in Zul'Farrak happened in Stratholme. So at that point, I just said screw it and messed around on Lemix for a while. My thought process was that I'd eventually be able to get into the dungeon way faster than a 4-hour unstuck, so I just kind of rode that out, and it worked. At this point, though, to keep myself from getting locked out, I decided it was finally time to do some raids. So we said goodbye to the Eastern Kingdoms, went back to Kalimdor, and flew all the way down to AQ. I run into AQ 20, I do a loop, I run out, I do AQ 40, and at this point, I'm still trying to figure out how I want to structure raids. I wasn't entirely sure how many characters I wanted to allow myself to have, but I didn't want it to stop me from actually running the raids this week. A little bit after the raids, I settled on the warband system, so going forward, the raids will look a lot cleaner. I was also heavily relying on the recording that I messed up to show all of the loot from the raids, so I don't have any of the list of what I did get from those raids. Whoops. Unfortunately, my facecam also covers my chat, so I'm unable to pull up the logs of what was new from the raids. But that's okay. This challenge is about getting Mog, and we'll do better next time. After AQ, we hearthed back and we did a little bank management. It wasn't good, but it was something. Our little vacation was over though, and it was finally time to finish off Strath Undead. And after 14 runs and a few unstucks later, we finally finished it. To reward myself for all of my hard work, I ran through my 3rd raid of the day, Molten Core. While I was in there, I reminisced about Onlyfangs, about the adventures that I had, the friends that I made, all while one-shotting all the mobs that were a pain in the ass to kill. Molten Core is so much easier when it's 5 minutes and not 5 hours. And after I finished Molten Core, it was time for Maraudon. Now, I was a little bit confused on how they changed Maraudon and how it's set up in the open world. I was told that there are 3 portals and that you had to use the 3rd one in order to get to the end of Maraudon. That's not the case, so for the first half, I was only running the first half of the dungeon. Which is fine. I think, admittedly, I probably would have gone stir-crazy going through the entire dungeon. So, this worked out. But what I didn't know is that Meshlock, a rare in the dungeon, has an exclusive item that only he has. It used to be a part of an Alliance quest, however, during Cataclysm it was removed. That means that this rare is the only way I'm going to get these robes. So I run Maraudon until I get everything that I need from the first 2 wings, minus Meshlock's robes. By this time, I've already run Maraudon 10 times, so I'm coming back for those later. I do, however, realize at this point that I can kill Princess, and so I do 1 run of Princess. Then it's off to a quick BWL before the infamous Dire Maul. That's right, your girl's going back to Dire Maul. Because I hate myself. I bounce around between Dire Maul East and Dire Maul West a little bit before somebody in my chat gives me a revelation. They explain to me that I can use Group Finder to manipulate dungeons in order to teleport outside of them. All you have to do is make a party and then leave it. This was the dungeon blessing that I had been looking for. I complete Dire Maul North in 6 runs, but then it's time for tribute runs. If you don't know what a tribute run is, you have to run through Dire Maul without killing any boss except the last boss. Once you do that, you get a cache of loot. A lot of these pieces are their own items, and therefore you can only get them from the tribute chest. There is one transmog, however, that is diabolical to get from the tribute chest, and that is Transmog. It is a purple item from the tribute chest with a 2% drop chance. And for a while I was sweating bullets, because I thought I would be in Dire Maul for 60 years. That is until I realized that this transmog shares Transmog with another axe, and that axe is Hellscream's Will. And right now I am thanking baby me, because in order to get this axe, you need to be exalted with the Mag'har. And I'm not talking about the allied race. I'm talking about Burning Crusade Mag'har. And my weird obsession with the Talbook made me grind out that reputation in Wrath of the Lich King. So thanks, I guess. And after 10 runs of Dire Maul Tribute, I had finally collected every single piece of unique gear in Dire Maul North, making my total runs in Dire Maul North 16. After Dire Maul North, in order to save lockouts, I bounced between Dire Maul East and Dire Maul West for the remainder. It took me 6 runs to complete Dire Maul East and 11 to complete Dire Maul West, making my total runs in Dire Maul 33. But hey, at least we're done Dire Maul. At this point, that left us with one dungeon left to do, Black Fathom Depths. There wasn't too much transmog that I needed from this dungeon, so I was able to complete it pretty quickly. And though I was still missing pieces from Razorfen Down and Maraudon, I was feeling pretty accomplished. So that's when I decided it was officially time to start my Eastern Kingdoms arc. My idea was that once I finished Eastern Kingdoms dungeons, I could go back and collect any other items that I hadn't gotten from previous dungeons. After I did that, I could do quests, farm BOEs, and start crafting. But that is a problem for the next episode. I hope you guys liked watching this as much as I liked making it. It's been really fun to step outside of my comfort zone and start making long-form content. And I'd like to continue this series for a while, so please let me know if you liked it in the comments. Additionally, if there's anything you think I should add, you can put that in the comments too. And if you guys want to keep up with Mog Quest, make sure you subscribe and also click the bell. Thanks guys, bye.